10 patterns that women usually exhibit that's holding them back from love, that's holding them back from the business success that they desire, that's holding them back from their leadership role, being an effective leader. These are all things. If they're shackled around your leg, everywhere you go, you're going to drag it with you. As we have those conversations, and each key point that we share, I want you to think about, how is this tied around my neck? How is this tied around my feet? How do I drag this in my marriage? How do I drag this inside of my relationships? How do I drag this when I'm leading? How do I drag this when I am at work? How do I drag this if I have a business and I'm working with clients? I want you to also think about the femininity aspect, which we talk about all the time. It's the way that you show up, is the energy that God gave you, is the traits that you possess that allows you to attract great things. So also think of it from that angle. I have notes written here because I don't want to miss a thing. I want to be able to give you all the things that I felt like God placed in my spirit for you today, so that you're able to walk out after watching this video with so much clarity and insight and self-awareness. Because as a coach, right, as a professional coach, it matters to me that if I'm having a conversation with you, and it doesn't matter if it's here on YouTube or especially if when you're working with me, it matters to me that you are gaining the self-awareness necessary to make changes. If you are in a space and certain things are holding you back and you are not realizing it, you don't have the self-awareness to make changes, then guess what? You're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over. You're going to keep failing over and over, and you won't even realize why. And those patterns will follow you. Let me stop preaching right now and let me just start diving right into this conversation, right? So the first pattern that holds women back from experiencing lasting success in their relationships and also inside of their career or leadership role is a woman who cannot stop seeking validation outside of herself. So instead of you feeling as if you are self-full, instead of you showing up with self-worth, instead of you showing up with the feeling that I am enough, what do? You would keep tapping into others and things that are outside of you. And what you end up doing is you keep giving your power to them. You don't have the control. Other people can walk around and completely derail your day. They dictate how you feel. And what ends up happening is that codependency happens. And we're going to talk about that as well. You start being codependent, okay? Which leads us into the second pattern. The second pattern that doesn't serve you well. Whenever you heavily rely on a partner, on a friend for self-worth, most women, what they end up doing is that they start neglecting their own feelings, they start neglecting their own boundaries, they start neglecting how they feel, because it's all a matter of how this person feels. It's about them. You feel sad, it's up to you to make me feel happy. You feel frustrated, it's because of you. Everything that you need is tied to that person, and it's not really tied to God, it's not tied to how you show up, right? So again, when you keep seeking validation out of yourself, that's the first key point. Number two, it leads to that codependency in others. The only way for you to walk free, the only way for you to show up with magnetism, the way for you to really start attracting the things that God has for you, and not just attracting it, it's you being able to receive it, and also for you to maintain it, you have to have a sense of self where you believe that who I am is sufficient, who I am is enough. Everybody else from the outside coming in is just a bonus. If someone compliments me, that's a bonus. If someone tells me I'm beautiful, that's a bonus. If someone tells me, wow, you are so worth amazing things, that's a bonus. But the source of me feeling this way cannot come from outside of me. It cannot. The third one is poor communication. Ooh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Poor communication. Now, when we think about what communication is, when we think about the power of it, it's really for you to be able to build strong connections with the people around you. It's really for you to be able to resolve issues. It's really for you to be able to express yourself in such of a way where if there's a conflict, it gets resolved. If there's something that you desire, you can express it. But what happens when there's poor communication? You find yourself in a place where instead of you expressing your desires, you're arguing. Instead of resolving the issue, you're having arguments. So there's no resolution. You're speaking, but nothing is becoming of it. And so when we cannot properly communicate our feelings, our expectations, our desires, our frustrations properly, okay, communicating those things, then it really rids us of the chance to really have a deep bond with the people around us. It really rids us of being able to express what needs to be done in the business. It really blocks you from being able to effectively communicate when you're frustrated and unhappy. And so instead of you being able to express, you holding things in. It really is powerful when a woman can show up in a way where she can effectively communicate how she's feeling, where she stands, and what's happening. Okay? Because the last thing you want is to be able to hold things in and for it to really impact your well-being as a woman. Okay? That's number 3. Poor communication. That's the third pattern that's really going to hold you back from an amazing love story, and that's also going to hold you back from business and career success, and that's also going to hold you back from being an effective leader. The fourth one is the fear of vulnerability. The fear of vulnerability. Now let me tell you this. To be vulnerable is not weakness. When we talk about femininity all the time here, and we always talk about femininity being a superpower, a woman who can be vulnerable is a woman who's really being able to have deep bond, deep connections, and who's really able to be in a place where the people around her can feel connected to her. When she says something and she expresses something, it's done with so much beautiful vulnerability that it lands better. Guess what really bonds us to people? It's our vulnerability. It's our moments of honesty. It's us being able to express exactly how we're feeling and why, right? It's what really bonds us to people. Imagine someone was to approach you, a client approaches you, a coworker approaches you, and they said, you know what, I'm having a really bad day today. This is what took place. I'm really struggling with it. And, I just wanted to let you know, it's not because I'm being passive aggressive. It's not because I'm being, like I don't want to connect with people. It's just that I'm really dealing with something. I just wanted to share that with you. Someone who's really vulnerable about where they are, what they're experiencing for the day. Versus someone who comes in and instead of them being vulnerable and honest and open with you, this person shows up and they just are talking to people any kind of way, or they're allowing that emotion to overtake them. Well, now who would you feel more connected to? At the end of the day, who would you check on? The person who's just been walking around rampant and blowing things up, or maybe who's just super, you don't know what's going on with them, versus the person who was able to express it to you vulnerably. Vulnerability connects us to people. It allows us to express ourselves in such a way where people can see us. And again, you need discernment. Who you're being vulnerable to, it matters, but overall, the fourth pattern that holds us back is not being able to be vulnerable to the people that it matters with. The fifth pattern, looking at my notes here, is the emotional reactivity. Ooh, this one kind of ties back to what I just shared with you. It kind of ties back. I say this all the time. A feminine woman is a woman who shows up with emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is all a matter of knowing how to manage your emotions, how to manage your anger, how to manage your frustrations. Nobody wants to be around a woman who's reactive. Nobody wants to be around a person whose buttons are pressed very easily. Now imagine a woman like this in the workplace. Imagine a woman like this in a relationship. Everything you say to her, everything that is expressed to her, she blows up. Do you see how this damages romantic relationships, marriages, dating, or maybe the person you're in a relationship with? Do you see how it damages the workplace? Do you see how it makes people come to work, especially if you're in a leadership position where people are like, I don't know what this leader is going to do today. Is she going to be in a good mood? Is she going to be in a bad mood? So that pattern, if you don't break it, being reactive to every emotion that you feel is going to really derail you from success. It doesn't matter how smart you are. Nobody wants to be around a woman who doesn't know how to manage her emotions. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with a woman who's going to be reactive to everything. It's not that you cannot feel angry, but how do you manage it when you do feel anger? Even the Bible tells us this, right? Being angry is not a sin. It's how you move about when you're angry that may potentially cause you to sin. And so when we think about femininity, when we talk about emotional intelligence, these are all biblical things. These are things that God gives us, right? But again, in order for us to get there, we have to be able to tap back into us. And there's a process and a journey of being able to go about it. The sixth pattern that holds women back is you continuing to repeat toxic relationship patterns. Maybe you met someone, this person had negative traits. They kept treating you a certain type of way. They speak to you any kind of way. They're not committed. They're just here whenever they want. And for some reason, because you lack self-worth, you stay right in this relationship. You don't think you're deserving of more. The relationship ends up not working out. And okay, you took some time You let the person go, and now you're back out here dating again, and guess what? You pick somebody with the exact same trait. The fact that you continuously keep choosing people with the same negative pattern, it speaks volumes, not just about the person who's mistreating you. It speaks volume about you, who keep choosing to stay in a relationship like that, who keeps choosing men who treat you like that. It's one thing to have a healthy relationship and there's conflict in it. That's different, and you resolve the conflict. But when you're moving from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, and all those relationships, it's with men who have the same toxic patterns, well, who's choosing them? These people may be approaching you, but who's choosing them? Who's choosing to stay in those relationships? It's very important for us to be in a space where we can evaluate, is there a pattern between the kind of men that I choose? Is there a pattern between the way I allow people to speak to me? Maybe it's at work. Is there a pattern with the way I show up? Because it's almost as if you're choosing the same men, but they're in different bodies. Ooh, because the spirit's the same. The spirit's the same. And so we need to reevaluate, what's my pattern? What do I accept in relationship? What's the same all the time? And what do I need to shift? And again, it takes a woman with self-worth to be able to choose the kind of relationships that, is beneficial to her and equally beneficial to the person. Okay? So that's number 6, a repetition of toxic relationship patterns. Number 7, people pleasing and lack of boundaries. You are not looking about what your needs are. You never think about what matters to you. No, let me rephrase that. You think about it, but you don't value it enough to make decisions based on what you need, based on not just what you want, based on what your needs are. You often neglect your own boundaries, you neglect your needs, you neglect your wants, you neglect what matters to you, because I'm gonna say no to me in order for me to say yes to them. That's mostly what happens. I'm gonna say yes to them, and even if it means me being uncomfortable, even if it means that I'm not really wanting to be there, I didn't want to take this trip. I didn't want to say yes to this volunteering opportunity. I didn't want to. There's a lot of different things. Maybe you feel like, okay, God is calling me to something else. God is calling me to a different career path. God is calling me to a different place. And you let what God tells you slide to the bottom because you're trying to say yes to somebody else. Can you imagine? God is placing something in your spirit, but instead of you saying yes to God, you're saying yes to men. Instead of you thinking about, what do I need today? I'm really tired. I just came back from a 15-day trip and I need to rest. But instead of you listening to what your body is in need of, somebody says, hey, come to this event with me. And here you are, you show up. And it's, again, sometimes we say yes to other people, simultaneously saying no to ourselves, or simultaneously saying no to what God is calling you to do. So that people-pleasing mentality is going to allow you to have a lot of resentment. It's going to push away the very great things that you may desire. You're going to feel overwhelmed. Think about what this means in your relationship. Maybe you were meant to go on a date night with your husband, but somebody else asked you to do something, and I can't say no because I don't want them to be angry at me. And so you neglect your relationship just that you can please somebody else. Maybe you're leading, and you know that there's something that needs to be done because morally speaking, it has to be done, but you don't want your team to hate you, so I'm just gonna let this slide. This will derail you in everything. If you can't stand for something, you're gonna fall for anything. Anything that comes your way, you're gonna fall for it. And so in order for you to be able to set boundaries, in order for you to be able to really sit with what God is calling you to do, in order for you to be able to lead effectively and to do things well in accordance to what you feel in your gut. And one of the things we speak about deeply as well when I teach my queens, the journey towards getting to femininity is about that self-trust. It's about the intuition that God gives you. Sometimes God is leading you and he's giving you peace about something, and you're letting the voice of men hold you back from doing what you feel in your spirit is right. People pleasing will rid you of blessings because you're listening to other people versus listening to what God is putting within you. You have to learn how to set boundaries. It's important for you to learn how to set those healthy boundaries and for you to listen to what you need to be doing instead of what other people need. Okay, so let me move on from this. Okay, number 8, self-sabotage. What does that look like? You lead yourself to believe that the blessings that are in your hands, the blessings that are coming, the doors that are opening, You find an opportunity and a reason, you find arguments just to push it away. You push away great relationships. You push away a great job. You say no to great blessings because you keep thinking, again, you are not allowing yourself to thrive, to live. You're not allowing yourself to be in a space where you can really experience greatness. And oftentimes it is tied to unresolved issues. Oftentimes it is, again, it's tied to you being healed. There's a wound somewhere that is blocking you from being able to accept greatness. And so again, if you don't deal with the wound, it's going to block you, and you're never going to be able to experience greatness within you. You're never going to be able to experience great blessings. You're never going to be able to experience peace within yourself. That's the first part. And again, when we think about all those 10 patterns we're talking about, think about how it impacts you. Think about how those things are shackles to you. So self-sabotage is going to deplete you, and it's usually rooting from insecurities and a wound that is not yet addressed. So it's important for you to address the wound and see how it's allowing you to have limiting beliefs about yourself. And a lot of times when I coach women, it's really about the limiting beliefs. It's about the things that are driving you subconsciously. How do we overcome them? How do we allow you to see you with so much clarity outside of the insecurities, outside of the wounds, outside of what people have said, outside of what you believe, so that you can be light, so that those shackles could be broken. So I want you to be in a place where you no longer self-sabotage, which is, allowing the past or allowing things to hold you back, allowing you to start saying yes to great things, believing that you're deserving of them. Okay, which brings us to the 9th pattern, the inability to let go of past hurt. Listen, as a coach, my focus is not like therapy where it's about the past and trauma. My focus as a coach is really about the present, and how can I take you from where you are right now to where you want to be. The marriage you want, the relationship you want, the leader you want to be, the career, the way you want to show up in your role at work, right? This is the work that we do as a coach, is how do I help you get to where you're trying to be by tapping within, by becoming your best self. And so when you're living in the past, what does that mean? Instead of you being able to be at peace in the present moment and start dreaming and focusing and working towards goals for the future, you're still dealing with past hurt. You're still dealing with things from the past. And so sometimes it's just becoming aware of what's keeping me in the past, because sometimes these are things that no longer even matter. But because you never took a time to evaluate your mind, body, soul, spirit. Again, the coaching space is all about you becoming so aware about things that you haven't considered, things that you haven't, really sat with, things that you haven't really evaluated about yourself in a long time. The coaching space is designed for you to start being in a place where there's a mirror in front of you. Every time you come into the coaching session, it's like there's a mirror that I'm putting in front of you, and I'm sitting right there with you, and we're evaluating you, right? And so when you cannot let go of the past, it really blocks you from the future. Think about it. You cannot be driving and looking at the rearview mirror and also looking at the front. It's one or the other. Which one are you looking at? Are you looking at the back view, or are you looking at the front view? And a lot of you here, you're in a place and you keep looking back. And no wonder you can't get to the great blessings, because you're still living in the past. Okay? So I invite you to start reeling yourself back in through this journey so that you can live in the present and start planning for the greatness that you desire to see in the future. Okay? And number 10, the 10th pattern that holds us back from great relationships and great business careers and great leadership, allowing us to be great leaders, is the lack of self-love and self-care. A woman who's not healed, a woman who hasn't yet made it to her feminine journey, is a woman who is not able to love on herself, is a woman who doesn't have enough self-love to indulge in those self-love moments, to enjoy in peace, to indulge in certain things that's going to allow your self-esteem to elevate. A woman with feminine energy, a woman who's emotionally intelligent, a woman who's healed, is a woman who indulges in those things. And when I'm talking about self-care, I'm not just talking about just going to a spa. No, when I'm talking about self-care, I'm talking about how do you care for your mind? How do you care for your heart? How do you care for your soul? How do you care for your spirit? I'm talking about a holistic way of doing it. Okay, so it's so important for us to be able to look at those things. And a woman who is in a space where she is unhealed and she's struggling with self-worth and she neglects things that she could be doing in all these different areas I've just spoken about for her to elevate, is a woman who's always going to be in a place where she feels depleted, she feels lost, she feels down, and again, it's going to hold you back from greatness. So if you're watching this here and majority of those things resonate with you, or even if it's one of them that resonates with you, I invite you to work with me, right? In the link below, you will see a link where you can apply for the Feminine Within Accelerator, because guess what? All those things, it's not going to change overnight, but I can guarantee you it's going to change in a matter of months if you're dedicated to the journey. And what I help my ladies do is I help them, again, see themselves in a clearer capacity, give them the tools on how to navigate the self journey, give them the tools to think about some of those things that they don't think about, right? The self-belief, the lack of self-love, the healing that needs to take place. But most importantly, how do you tap into your feminine power to be able to experience lasting success in your marriage, in your dating, to be an effective leader, right? I give you the tools, and I also coach you around how to get there. And the coaching space is very powerful. It's for women who are ready to see themselves clearer. It's for women who's ready to sit with some of those things that may be uncomfortable. I tell my ladies all the time, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. We just spoke about vulnerability. You have to be willing to show up authentically. You have to be willing to say, you know what? I am ready for more. I'm ready for greatness. I'm ready to experience life in a different capacity. Then and only then are you going to be dedicated to this journey within our Feminine Within Accelerator. So I want to say thank you once again for being here. I'm super excited that you are here. Again, if this resonates with you, click the link below and apply to work with us within our Feminine Within Accelerator, where you have a curriculum that guides you through the healing, the self-worth, and the femininity, which is the place we want to take you. That's our main focus, is the feminine piece. How do you get there? And also, you meet with me one-on-one or within a group setting, depending on which package is chosen, where we work together as a cohort. In a group cohort, there's power as well, because you're able to learn from other women who are in the same capacity as you, who are professional women as well, and who are dealing with similar issues, and you can learn from them and vice versa. It's a safe space where there's no judgment. Or we can work together one-on-one. But it doesn't matter which one you choose, you will have access to the curriculum that's still giving you a lot of tools on how to navigate those areas that we just spoke about. So love you, Queen. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave it below and I'll be happy to answer it. Or you can go to my website, the link is below as well, where you can send me a message, and I look forward to supporting you. God bless you. Until next time.